What's up?
All right, we are right outside the movie theater, about to go see Dune 2. Let's see how it is. All this for $4 with the rewards points. You got to, bro.
This is our favorite theater.
100%.
We've come here like, what, maybe 15 times in the last
Bro,
6 months.
the summer was insane, the amount of time we came here. Look at this, bro. Opening night, first showing. You know we like that.
There's a showing at 7 and almost every seat filled. I don't even know how we were able to get into this theater.
Signs of opioid overdose. Some for sale.
Well, son, it's a nice looking blanket, but I find it a little crass.
Crass? Really?
All right, so we just got out of the theater. We just saw Dune Part II for the first time, opening night. What an experience. That was a pretty crazy movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I honestly don't know. It took a second for me to kind of put my thoughts together, which is kind of how it is for most of the movies that I watch. But this one was more of me trying to figure out what I liked most about it, if that makes sense. Like, usually I'm deciphering if I actually like the movie or not. But this one, I, without question, loved it.
Oh, okay. So I feel like that's pretty high praise because usually, not that you're like super picky, but like you are very particular about storylines and just overall concepts.
I think that the storyline, like, that's the most important thing for me. And if I get lost at all, and I will say that I'm very dynamic because usually I go off of like the books and how things are formulated as well as like narratives and stuff like that. So I can really fastly tell if something is not well thought out from like a storytelling standpoint. But this overall, there was not really any holes in the storyline. I understood what was going on throughout and it made sense, which was important because I feel like a movie like this, it's really hard to get stuck in this universe and not understand what was going on. But this one did a really good job.
Yep. So this video is coming out on opening night. It's going to be spoiler free, so don't worry about getting spoiled. You can go see the movie, come back, and we're going to release our spoiler review probably Saturday or Sunday. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be a little bit more of a deep dive into what we liked, what we thought could have improved about the movie. But overall, first thoughts, I want to talk about the cinematography because I think Dune 1's cinematography and just the overall shot quality was excellent. But I think this one was a little bit more ambitious with the more intense story that it was telling. And I think they were able to take a step up in the shot quality and just the overall product, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even like, you could tell even from the first movie that they know how to do good shot sequences. But now the second movie not only has good shot sequences, but they have the budget to be able to produce great shot sequences. And I think that does come a lot with just the overall appearance of everything. And they're able to convey the storyline without actually worrying about all these other aspects, which is good. And just the shot sequences are more used for cinematic purposes and not really for storytelling purposes because the characters themselves are driving the storyline.
Yeah, I mean, all of the shots with the sandworms, they are incredibly exciting. They're probably the best sequences in the movie. And obviously, it's not a spoiler. You can see it all in the trailer, but there's a ton of shots with like massive armies. Those are all incredibly framed, whether they're from over the top or almost like ground level. They really elevate the action, and it almost makes you anxious about those scenes.
So now that we've really just talked a lot about like the cinematography, I want to talk about the music that they used. And even in the first movie, the music was already good, but I think the sound in general that they used in the second movie was phenomenal. And I think the one thing that I will say overall is that the music in the first one didn't seem as purposeful, but in the second one, it gave more purpose to the not only the voices that they used, but just the sound effects and how they were placed in certain parts. And I think that they gave more prominence to the more important ones, which is not the same thing that I could say for the first one, which goes to show how important it is. And I'm really happy that they were able to showcase it.
Yeah, I feel like compared to the first one, which was already at such a high level, as you can remember from our Dune 1 review that came out a couple days ago, I would say, kind of like you said, it's an improvement on that. And it seems very intentional with whether it's specific characters that get their own kind of, not theme music, but, you know, it fits their character model, and it's different for like Harkonnen characters, or, you know, the Fremen, or even some of the people in the Empire that you get to meet in this film. So I would definitely say it was a step up there. Moving on to the performances, I think that's an important category to talk about because there was a ton of returning characters and also some new ones that I think did a pretty good job. I want to start with the new one, Austin Butler as Fade Rotha. That was a very intense role, and I thought he brought fantastic energy to that character.
Oh, really? I don't really know if I like his character overall. I do like what he brought to the character, but the character itself didn't really have as much purpose, if that makes sense, because this isn't really a spoiler, but his character is very important, but I didn't feel like he was very important, if that makes sense. I just kind of thought he was thrown in to all the other new characters, which leads me to my next point, the other character, which is the Emperor's daughter, or the princess, I think. And that's played by Florence Pugh, and she did amazing. I think she was one of my favorite characters.
Really?
For someone with such little lines, she didn't have a lot of lines. She just basically set the scene for what it looks like on the Emperor's planet. And I think that she did a great job of doing that without really giving too much away, which is cool.
Yeah, I feel like Florence Pugh, like you said, she doesn't get as much screen time as you would maybe expect from such a high-profile casting. But I almost feel like in a similar way to Zendaya in the first one, where her screen time doesn't really come until most of the end of the film, like probably the back third. I feel like they're anticipating more storyline in the future, whether it's in a series or another movie, to the point where they're expecting Florence Pugh to take on a bigger role in maybe a third movie.
That's kind of the thought that I'm thinking. Like, even though she didn't have a lot to say, her character itself is a huge part of this movie, which is really good, which is why I think her casting was perfect.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I could say the same thing about Austin Butler's character.
I feel like the character that Austin Butler is portraying, he's so aggressive, but also it almost combines with the cinematography that we were talking about. His scenes, of course, seen in the trailer, are, one of them is in like black and white, and it is almost like horrifying to watch. It's like, I feel like if they just shot it on regular, colored frame, it wouldn't be as impactful viewing wise. And I thought that played a great introduction to his character from the beginning.
So moving on, maybe we can talk a little bit more about just storyline in general. I thought that the storyline in general was really good and kind of never gave you, there was like a mix of obviously like great action and just overall effects and stuff like that, but it was very much like leveled out by not only cinematic like shots and just beautiful shots, but it also gave way for like moments of very nice like silence and slowed down the pacing, which is good, which sometimes I don't like, but in a movie like this where you kind of need to see both sides of like the good and the bad to fully understand like in war there's always good and bad, and that's kind of the reasoning that I think that they had for doing all of that. So overall the pacing of this movie is really good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's a very long movie. I think it's close to 3 hours in total runtime, including the credits. But I think, again, that's another improvement from the first one, because there are a lot of people, especially if you don't know the story going into it, that would probably see the first Dune part as, I would say, boring compared to
yes.
this one. There's a lot more action. There's a lot more high-paced scenes mixed in throughout the film instead of kind of just at the peak, maybe at the back half of it, which I think makes it a very watchable and digestible movie all the way through. Even though it is over 2 hours long, it doesn't really feel that way because you're constantly going from different important scene to different important scene. So it kind of, like you said, it makes it run pretty smoothly.
Yeah, so that being said, I do think that this is definitely a good watch, and I highly encourage anyone to be able to watch it because in the first reaction that I had as soon as I came out of the theater was everyone has to watch this movie. Even if you aren't really into like war movies or movies that are set in other worlds or whatever, it doesn't matter because the movie itself is beautiful. Even for me, like I don't like gory scenes, I don't like blood and all that, but I was still able to appreciate a movie like this for what it was.
Yeah, I think if you were a fan of the first one, obviously you're going to probably like this one even more. If you haven't seen the first one, I would suggest you watch it before going into this viewing just because it builds on a lot of what is seen in the first movie. So it will make it a lot easier to understand. It's going to kind of feel weird to jump in like the middle of a story. But other than that, I feel like they absolutely nailed this one. And the wait from 2021 was definitely well worth it. So keep an eye out for our spoiler review coming out in a couple of days. That'll be a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the actual plot and storyline that I really enjoyed in this movie. But thanks for watching. Go ahead and subscribe and leave a like and maybe leave a comment.